Back in 1968, the Pontiac Firebird rolled onto the scene and instantly became a symbol of style, power, and pure automotive confidence, capturing the hearts of a whole generation. Can you believe that its esteemed reputation is based on a lie? There is a much more complicated tale behind the hood and the iconic Trans Am stripes than you might think. What if the legendary Pontiac Firebird was never intended to be created in the first place? Yep, it wasn't even part of the original plan. It's more like a bold underdog born out of a corporate curveball. Let's uncover hidden secrets, forgotten controversies, and the truth they never wanted you to know. If you were a die-hard Pontiac fan in 1968, ready to show off about your Firebird's muscle, you opened the hood and found a Chevy engine. How did that happen? And why would Pontiac take the chance of disappointing its most loyal fans? Let's start with the Chevy engine controversy. Some Firebird models have a 350 cubic inch V8 engine that was directly taken from Chevrolet. This was a complete contradiction for Pontiac supporters. They viewed it as a betrayal of the brand's identity, a muscle car icon compromised by corporate politics. But here's the catch: Pontiac wasn't fully to blame. In order to reduce expenses, General Motors had a strict strategy of exchanging parts throughout its divisions. Even while the strategy made monetary sense, it provoked heated debate among both critics and enthusiasts. Was the Firebird actually a Pontiac, or was it a Camaro? This dispute turned into a topic of debate, dividing fans and giving more drama to the Firebird's legacy. So, why did Pontiac decide to use Chevrolet engines in the Firebird? In order to fully understand, we must go back to the mid to late 1970s, when the automotive industry was still in shock from the 1973 oil crisis. The new priorities were cost reduction and fuel efficiency, and Pontiac's parent corporation, General Motors, wasn't going to let tradition get in the way of financial success. Pontiac first offered a range of engines in the Firebird in an effort to maintain its identity. A Chevrolet 305 V8, the Buick 231 V6 as the standard option, and even a small number of Oldsmobile Rocket 350 V8s were among the options available to purchasers in 1977. However, GM pushed for uniformity to reduce costs and streamline production as financial limitations increased. Pontiac was forced to use Chevrolet's 350 V8 engine to standardize the Firebird's lineup. Enthusiasts viewed this as a loss of Pontiac's uniqueness, but for GM, it was just good business. However, this difference in viewpoint brought up an interesting question. Why did the claim that Canadian Firebirds had factory-installed Chevy engines cause controversy in the 1968 Trans Am Racing Series? Well, Canadian racers Terry Godzall and Craig Fisher argued it to gain a competitive edge and let them compete Firebirds with Chevrolet power under the hood in that high-stakes series. The catch is that there is no concrete evidence that this assertion was ever accurate. It appears that the SCCA skipped a thorough investigation and took the story at face value. There has never been any concrete proof that first-generation Firebirds ever came out of the factory with Chevy engines installed. Was it a clever way to obtain an advantage over competitors, or was it a case of breaking the rules? In any case, this dispute continues to be one of the more fascinating stories in the Firebird's legendary history. Next on the list is the insurance cheating scandal. Have you ever wondered how manufacturers of muscle cars kept their vehicles looking reasonably priced, yet having far greater power? When it comes to horsepower ratings, the key is to play fast and loose with the numbers. The insurance cheating scandal involves manipulating statistics and concealing information. Understated horsepower estimates were used to market muscle vehicles like the Firebird in the past in an attempt to prevent insurance rates from skyrocketing. As an example, consider the Ram Air 3 engine. Pontiac stated it had around 335 horsepower, but the truth was a bit more jaw-dropping. Here's the twist. During dyno tests, it was discovered that this engine was not only meeting but exceeding expectations, producing roughly 380 horsepower at 4,500 RPM. That is far more muscle than everyone first thought. The official figures, just the tip of the iceberg. What about the Ram Air 4 engine? Experts estimate that it could have produced up to 427 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, despite Pontiac rating it at 345 horsepower. Anyway, these cases were not isolated. In order to keep insurance companies from going into a tailspin, automakers purposefully downplayed the true capabilities of their muscle cars, which was actually a fairly common practice in the industry. However, as the marketing departments kept their cars close to the vest, tensions between insurance companies, manufacturers, and regulators started to build. Insurance firms were watching for any indications of dishonesty, while muscle car manufacturers were attempting to safeguard their sales. It was a game of cat and mouse. Now, let's dive into the behind-the-scenes world of Pontiac dealers. What if some of the most powerful Firebirds weren't factory originals but secret creations by daring dealers? It was well known that some dealerships went above and beyond the factory specifications to enhance Pontiac Firebirds. One of the most famous names was Royal Pontiac, a pioneering dealership established in 1959 by the legendary drag racer Ace Wilson. They rose to fame with their groundbreaking Royal Bobcat modification package, which transformed regular Firebirds into vehicles fit for the racetrack. However, there was a catch to these changes. They frequently functioned in a gray region, balancing aftermarket modifications with factory standards. This made it more difficult to define what was considered official, leading to disagreements over the credibility of manufacturer warranties and performance ratings. For the dealers, it was a daring move, but for the buyers, it was risky. This marks a little-known period in Firebird history where dealers, rather than the factory, took the lead in creating high-performance, unofficial special editions. Some Pontiac dealers were getting creative behind the scenes, maybe a bit too creative. These dealers made the decision to act independently rather than following the factory blueprint. They started equipping Firebirds with high-performance components, turning them into unofficial special editions that you'd never find on the standard production line. With modifications that were not documented in any official records, these modified Firebirds were sold secretly, often under the table. They were faster, flashier, and totally unrecorded. The problem is that these adjustments occasionally had unanticipated costs. Customers would find that the factory guarantee on their new, gleaming Firebird was no longer valid. As a result, buyers and Pontiac itself got into a number of heated arguments. Let's take a look inside GM and uncover the power struggle that's quietly unfolding behind the scenes. Why did Pontiac engineers engage in a corporate tug-of-war with GM management, especially those in charge of Chevrolet? The answer lies in internal politics and fierce rivalry. The Camaro, Chevrolet's golden child, was already a contender in the muscle car market. Executives at Chevy didn't want the Firebird to overshadow them. This internal power struggle is said to have resulted in intentional barriers throughout the Firebird's development and promotion. The Firebird's potential was limited by internal politics rather than a lack of creativity, as seen by design restrictions and strategic choices. It was a usual case of sibling rivalry, but this time it took place beneath the hoods of two famous cars. John DeLorean, the general manager of Pontiac at the time, found himself in the midst of a corporate storm while working to bring the Pontiac Firebird to life. His biggest challenge? The strong opposition from GM's top executives. GM executives unanimously rejected DeLorean's Pontiac Banshee prototype when he originally presented it. Their main worry? The classic Corvette just couldn't compete with the Banshee. The executives at GM were concerned that the new vehicle would steal away the Corvette sales, which was still the company's best-selling vehicle. They said the Banshee would cannibalize the Corvette's market share, and they didn't want to risk the Corvette Stingray's sales falling due to a new competitor. Absolutely unfair, right? But now, let's find out what happened after Pontiac's racing dreams were sidelined due to the controversial race ban. The 1968 Firebird was designed with racing in mind. Pontiac envisioned it as a force on the track and a formidable rival in racing. However, there was one major hurdle: GM's infamous corporate racing ban, which had been in place since the early 1960s and continued to have an impact until the late 1960s. This ban stopped Pontiac from officially promoting any racing initiatives, leaving the Firebird's true capabilities unfulfilled on the racetrack. However, like with all regulations, where there's a will, there's a way. The corporate racing prohibition may have put official motorsport initiatives on hold, but it sparked an explosive underground performance culture that was far more rebellious. Dealerships were converted into unofficial performance hotspots where mechanics secretly modified vehicles to squeeze out every last bit of power and speed. Unwilling to abandon the Firebird's racing heritage, enthusiasts and independent racers turned to these hubs to keep its spirit alive. They looked to the black market for high-performance parts to overcome the restrictions and make the Firebird the racing machine it was meant to be. In the meantime, street racing took off, with enthusiasts converting peaceful back roads into temporary racetracks at night. The Firebird participated in races where the sound of its engine could be heard as part of a covert culture of illicit street racing and unofficial gatherings. Now, it's time to find out how Pontiac engineers came up with creative ways to maintain the excitement without crossing the line as emissions regulations tightened. As stricter emissions standards were implemented in the late 1960s, rumors of Pontiac's creative solutions started to spread. Pontiac engineers were masters of deception. They came up with clever methods to get around rules without sacrificing the Firebird's ability to perform. single-barrel carburetors, which are functional for passing tests but can be readily replaced for high-performance upgrades, were installed in the automobiles. Engines, which were constructed with identical outward dimensions but had internal components with wildly differing power outputs, were another masterwork of deceit. In a time when regulations are tightening, these solutions were clever, almost rebellious, a way to keep the muscle car dream alive. However, like with all good secrets, this one was soon revealed. The revelation of the facts led to discussions about innovation, ethics, and the extent to which automakers will go to maintain performance. It also compelled businesses to change, coming up with fresh strategies to blend power with compliance. This chapter of automotive innovation stands as a testament to a time marked by daring risks, pioneering engineering, and an unwavering love for speed. And with that, we bring this thrilling ride to a close. What's the most surprising thing you learned from this video? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping automotive secrets. If you think the story of the Firebird is interesting, click to watch our last video now to find out the shocking truth about Chrysler's banned Hemi 426 engine.